I would define heteronormativity as a concept in which individuals think that everybody around them is heterosexual. So they don't consider the fact that there are people in the society that are not heterosexual.
Placing people into categories that we define as normal, such as male and female and masculine and feminine, going with male and female respectively. That's one of the problems with heteronormativity, is that we're also accustomed to it, that even coming from a completely minority position, I still have it in my brain.
You know, our society has two boxes, right? Well, you have your male box and you have your female box. So society tells you you have to fit into those boxes. Male has to be a certain way, has to act a certain way, has to dress a certain way. Same thing with the female box. Same thing with sexuality, right? We have our gay box and we have our straight box. So a gay individual has to act a certain way or look a certain way. Straight individuals have to act the same way, a certain way. So I think that society has these boxes around gender and around sexuality, and I think gender is still one that can, I would argue, overplays sexuality in terms of the strict conditions within those boxes.
Our system has been based typically on the idea that a particular kind of anatomy comes with a particular identity. So we have the concept that what it means to be a woman is to have a female identity.
The reason that these things are, besides the fact that we're constantly perpetuating them with advertising, with media, with just stereotypes and all that stuff, we're just not educated on gender as a spectrum, or as gender being anything different than a guy and a girl. And a lot of times gender is even equated with sex. I think that the biggest thing that we can do as a society, at least here, is educate people. That's the first step to getting to a place where we can abolish heteronormativity and abolish the gender stereotypes.
I think that it would be great if we could have those conversations with maybe heterosexual individuals that are presenting their gender in different ways. There's this really great author.
Cheryl Kilo Davis, author of the book My Princess Boy, allows her 5-year-old son Dyson to dress as he chooses, even if that means a tiara and tutu.
And so that was very difficult for other people to accept when Dyson would go to school in a dress. Why is he wearing a dress? And when she came and talked, she talked about how the other children that were Dyson's age didn't have a problem with it. They're like, oh yeah, Dyson's wears dresses, whatever. But the parents, who have been assimilated already through 30 years of gender roles, were the ones that were having the most problem with it.
Some girls like superheroes, some girls like princesses, some boy like superheroes, some boy like princesses.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely
then,
right.
why does all the girls have pink stuff and all the boys have different color stuff?
Nature doesn't draw the line for us between male and female, or between male and intersex and female and intersex. We actually draw that line on nature. So what we have is a sort of situation where the farther our science goes, the more we have to admit to ourselves that these categories that we thought of as stable anatomical categories that mapped very simply to stable identity categories are a lot more fuzzy than we thought.
What's the difference between being gender non-binary and being transgendered male to female or female to male?
If you're binary, for starters, society recognizes you as a person.
So sex is how I've seen it outlined. I'm a visual person, so I like seeing pictures. I've seen the outline of an individual, of a person, and there's an arrow directing to their genitalia area to direct to sex, right? And then there's an arrow to their brain saying gender. So gender is one that you feel that you are. We have genderqueer, and how I described it is you have your male and your female box of what the expectations are, and what I like to do is put a little wave in between them, so you're queering up the gender roles, so you don't conform to those boxes as much. Transgender is an umbrella term, so it's a term in which there are different identities underneath that term, so you just think of an umbrella. Underneath that umbrella, you have transsexual individuals. So those that believe that they were born in the wrong body. Also underneath transgender is drag queens and drag kings. So these are individuals that dress in the opposite gender for entertainment. Or we have intersex individuals. So this is a new PC term. The older term was hermaphrodite. So those are individuals that are born with both genitalia. And those individuals had to make a choice later on in life in terms of what gender they felt that they were.
The reason that children with these kinds of bodies, whether it's dwarfism or it's conjoined twinning or it's an intersex type, are often normalized by surgeons is not because it actually leaves them better off in terms of physical health. In many cases, people are actually perfectly healthy. The reason they're often subject to various kinds of surgeries is because they threaten our social categories.
Society has these boxes for gender, and if you don't conform to them, then you're seen as an outcast, unfortunately, right? As though you don't fit in.
I identify as male for the most part. That's not to say what is the word? That's not to say I don't identify as transgender. I just don't feel the need to for the most part. It's weird when people just look at you differently. That's probably the biggest thing that I've experienced, especially because before I started taking hormones or before I got surgery, I was pretty ambiguous looking, and like I said, because we're so accustomed to guys and girls, seeing that in-between person always makes people feel weird. And then surgery, so that was not so much a legal thing, but just also sort of a process you kind of go through. It's really expensive, and most insurances don't cover it because a lot of insurances believe it is an unnecessary surgery. It was an amazing experience just to see yourself finally at least closer to how you've always thought you were in your head. So it felt like I was that much closer to myself, you know, being born and constantly feeling like you're trapped in a cage. It's like being set free almost.
Ideally, I think what would happen is that we wouldn't have these boxes, and if a child wanted to grow their hair out or wanted to play with Barbies if they're male, then that shouldn't be an issue. Popular media helps, I think once people can relate to a storyline or a character that has similar problems like them, but happens to be gay or happens to be a transgender woman, then they could find that character relatable, and then they could easily say, oh, okay, they're just like me, right? So we were talking about the fine line between entertainment and education within the media, but I think the media has a lot to do with acceptance.
I think that social media is actually going to help us dismantle some of the silly and demeaning stereotypes that we see in media and advertising about gender. If you hadn't noticed, our media climate generally provides a very distorted mirror of our lives and of our gender, and I think that's going to change.
A handful of very prestigious colleges are having gender-neutral bathrooms, very vibrant, gender-neutral housing that's very vibrant, and so that's really setting the trend, So if these prestigious institutions are doing it, then we should start thinking about this also.
One of the best things when you're coming out to someone is when they ask questions because they want to be truthfully educated. I, as a trans person, really appreciate that because it means that the person cares about you and they care about how you feel and how you identify, and they want to make you feel as comfortable as possible, and so that's really, really nice.